Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier from Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. This video today is not part of my simple stamping series, so we will be using the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. In fact, we'll be using it, working up a storm with it today, because today's card uses dies and a lot of dies. So we'll be making this card, which I created for a colour challenge at Colour Inspiration. So the colours were really chosen for me, and they are Blackberry Bliss, Highland Heather, Smoky Slate and Mint Macaron. And I have focused on using dies today. So although the basis is Brilliant Wings, we are also using some of the dies Forever Flourishing, which pair up with Forever Fern. And for the sentiment, we'll be using both the stamp set Art Gallery and the Floral Gallery dies. We're going to be using this lovely little postage edged cutout for the sentiment. So let's get started, and we'll start with what do we need? Well, I've used a Blackberry Bliss card base. It is cut at 14.8 centimetres tall. It's the width of a piece of A4 paper, so it is scored at 10.5. We'll make a nice fold there to get a sharp edge. I've got a mat of Smoky Slate, which is 14.3 by 10. And then a piece of basic white, which is half a centimetre smaller again, so 13.8 by 9.5. And on the inside, I've got exactly the same thing, a piece of Smoky Slate and a piece of basic white the same size, which will mat together when we get up to that. The white for the front I've already embossed, and I have used the bricks and mortar die. You could use whatever die you liked, but I picked bricks and mortar because I kind of had in mind, you know, a garden wall with some trees and the butterflies flittering about in the sunshine. So I picked that. You're also going to need a little piece of Smoky Slate, because we're going to use this die from the Flourishing, the Forever Flourishing. We're going to cut that out of Smoky Slate, and I've already done that. You're going to need a little bit of Mint Macaron, because we're going to also cut 2 of those dies from the Forever Flourishing, which again I've already done. And we're going to use 2 butterflies from the Brilliant Wings. Now I've already cut a white one, and I've already cut one out of the watercolour paper that we're about to colour. And I've also already cut one of these little ones. However, I am going to show you how I made the paper to do this. So the other thing you need for this is a piece of watercolour paper. And you need whatever coloured inks you're going to use. And I like to use an acrylic block. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with the Highland Heather, because that's the lightest colour. So I'm just going to ink up this block with some Highland Heather. And I'm just going to add in some touches of Blackberry Bliss, because you know Blackberry Bliss is an incredibly strong colour, and I don't want it to hide all of the Highland Heather. Now I'm just using an old towel there just to protect my work surface, because I'm about to use a bit of water, but paper towel would work fine. And now I'm just going to spritz that until the ink, you can see that the ink is starting to run. And when it starts to run, then you know you've done it enough, and then you just flip the block and give it a bit of a smush. Now, you can just go back in and smush a bit more. And you can also use that towel to just pick up any of the excess. And you can see you get a nice little variation. The colours blend together, so you get a bit of the Highland Heather and you get a bit of the Blackberry Bliss, and then you get a bit of a sort of an amalgam of the both of them. Now, because I like to let it dry naturally, I mean, you can use the heat gun and zap it. Usually I let it dry naturally. As you've seen, I've already done one. But that's what I do. And then when I came back, when that's dry, I would just look to see, oh, where is there a nice bit of variation? And that's why I've used a much bigger piece than I actually need for that die, because I can then choose to do the cutting out from where I'm going to get the prettiest look. Okay, so that's that, and as you see, I've already done that previously, and I've die cut out the 2 little butterflies I want. Now, in this particular one, I wasn't overly happy with the look of it, but even if I had been, I would still do this step. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to define the edges a little bit more with my blending brush. So I'm just coming in here with a little bit of Blackberry Bliss. And I'm just going to dust up the edges a little bit so that they're more clearly defined. There we go. Just a little touch to bring out the shape better. So I'll pop that away. Okay, we are in fact going to start doing a little bit of assembly now, just because the basics are pretty straightforward. So I'm going to attach my embossed panel. I'm going to put some extra glue in the middle just because it's a textured surface, so I want to make sure I get good adhesion. So that's why I've added in a bit of extra glue in the middle, which normally I'd just go around the edge. And I'm just going to attach that to the smoky slate. Have a bit of a look at it. Make sure it's nice and straight. Looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to adhere that to the base. Okay. Now the reason I did that now is because before I start assembling my beautiful butterfly and the bits of foliage, there's another element that I want to add. Now if you look back at this, at the original, you'll see that there's this lovely little lacy doily in here, and that's because I wanted to anchor my cluster onto the background. Now I could have just cut like a circle of vellum or a circle of card and embossed it, but on my desk was this lovely little packet of doilies out of the January to June 2022 catalogue. Now they are called the Heart and Home doilies, and they come in cinnamon cider, basic grey and misty moonlight. However, the reverse of them is white. It looks perfectly white until you hold it against basic white, and then you can see it's actually a very sort of soft shade of smoky slate. So I thought that would be really nice to build up my elements on. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to add a bit of glue, add a couple of little dibbles around the edge, and attach that here, ready to layer up all my other elements. Now, the thing that I really would like you to take away today, if you don't already do this, is that you can do whatever you like to a die cut once you have done it. So don't be afraid to, as I did with this butterfly, add some extra colour, or what I'm about to do now, which is start cutting them up. So I'm pretty sure that I'd like that one there, but I don't want so much at the bottom, so I'm simply going to snip it into pieces that I can use in a smaller amount. So see, what I'm doing now is what I always say to my class people: before you actually glue anything down, just kind of like lay it out and see if it's going to work before you start attaching. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to snip out that bit and probably tuck it in the back. Oops. Yep, that'll work. And then I would like perhaps a smaller piece down the bottom. So I'm just going to shape that leaf. Yep, and I can see that that is going to come together, except that I think I've got a little bit too much green in that one, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a prune there and there. Okay, I think that'll work. And then I'm just going to use my pencil to just mark the spot. Okay, so now I'm just going to move that pencil out of the way. Got my little silicone mat in here because I don't want to over glue these. I don't want glue oozing out all over the place and making little lines. So after I've glued it like that, I'm just going to dab it with this old piece of sponge so there's nothing left to ooze. Okay, and now just gonna, actually I should have done that grey one first, but never mind. And now we'll do the same with that little piece of smoky slate. We'll give them a little bit of glue. Now if you trust yourself to have not put on too much glue, then obviously you don't need to do what I've just done there, which is to dab it off with a piece of cloth, with a piece of sponge. Okay, and now I can sort of see how I'm going to place those. So same thing, dab it off, just gonna pop it in there, and this one. Same little deal, dab it off. Okay, just add it in like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is you'll have noticed that I cut out, or I told you that I'd cut out this little basic white butterfly, and that's because I quite like to layer them up. And I don't know whether you can see that it adds in just a nice little bit of shadow, which from some angles you don't see, and then in other angles you just get this little flash of depth in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue up the centre of my butterfly. And I'm going to pop her there. Just going to hold it firm. I'm only gluing in the centre because I want the wings to lift up and look like she's about to take flight. And then I'm going to do the same on that one. And again, if I think I've got too much glue, which I do, just going to dab it off with that old bit of sponge. Going to pop it on top. And let it lift, just let it lift. Now, the sentiment, as I said to you earlier on, the sentiment I took from Art Gallery, and Art Gallery's got a mile of sentiments. I used Happy Birthday for the sample, but I thought that for a bit of change, I've already done I'm Thinking of You from that, and I have used that die there to just cut it out. And I have also cut a matching piece in Blackberry Bliss, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oops, get out of here. I'm going to just tuck those, layer those together, because you get a real, if you just offset them slightly, you get that lovely little bobbly line, which I really like, which just gives you a little bit more emphasis to the sentiment without being in your face. So we will pop some dimensionals on the back of that. Don't know what my dimensionals are doing there. Okay, so we'll just pop some dimensionals on the back. And as you know, I like to use plenty of dimensionals because I just don't like my lifted elements to sag. So 4. In fact, I'd have been happier with 5, but I'll settle for 4. Okay, and so we'll just pop that in there. I've lined up my card with my grid paper just to help me maximise my chances of keeping it straight. And then I'm just going to add in my last little butterfly there. And yes, I've got a mini. So we'll pop a mini dimensional on the back of that one. She can just pop down there. And to finish things off, we will pop on some rhinestones, and the take your pick tool is pretty handy for that. So let's see, I think we will have a big one on the thorax, followed by a couple of littlies. Whoops, lost control of it. And another one. Whoops, get straight. That's better. And perhaps a medium-sized one on there. And I feel like another one is necessary. So where will I pop it? I think I'll pop it there. Okay, so there is the one I started with, and here is, oops, I like that curled up a bit more. Here is our finished card front. What I did on the front in the inside of this one is I had a little bit of my my ink smushed watercolour paper left over, so I cut one out and added it in. I didn't have any ink smushed paper left over from that one, but I do have a little Highland Heather one. So I'm going to just pop this together now. The reason that I have matted the inside, because I have said before in previous videos that I'd seldom matte my interiors and then have proceeded to do so almost every time. But in this instance, the front is quite heavy. It's got a triple layer and it's got a lot of stuff on it. And I always think that your cards sit more nicely when you give them to someone if the front and the inside are of equal weight. So, and that's why I've decided that in this instance I will give the inside of the card a smoky slate matte just to finish it off. Okay, so you just pop in there. And we'll finish them off. Whoops, pop down there like that. And a nice little fold just to make sure it sits nicely for the recipient. And there we have it, Butterfly Brilliance and Floral Art Gallery, I'm Thinking of You card in Blackberry Bliss, Highland Heather, Mint Macaron and Smoky Slate. Now if you'd like to know more about this card or you'd like to contact me, I have a blog and a Facebook page, the details of which will pop up at the end card at the end of the video and in the description underneath the video. If you live in New Zealand and you'd like to shop with me, there are also links to my online store in both of those places. Thank you.